Shalom. Shalom. This is Yeshaya Yisrael. Want to first and foremost give honor and praise unto Yah, the creator of heaven and earth. This is part 2, initial between the Hyksos and the Hebrews. And wanted to focus on this picture. Going to go over a couple of pictures and some readings. This here is an Ethiopian version of what happened with the meeting between the Queen of Sheba and Solomon. So this here is some pictures from that. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out emphatically is a couple of things. One, we know good and well that the people in Ethiopia, as well as in the people that was in which were called the Levant, were people of color. Now, among these people of color, they had no distinction in how they used to sit there and view between what you call light skin or dark skin. This is why you might even look and see the people who are portrayed in what we would today call light skin, as we see right here. You still got what they would call quote unquote Negroid features. That is to say, like the afro or the kinky like hair, for instance. A lot of times they use those kind of terminologies once it comes down to certain college level stuff. All right, now one of the things also wanted to point out is this picture that we went over before. And this is part of the people called the Hyksos, as we see here. And these people here, brothers and sisters, is part of the people called the Arameans, the people of Aram. All right? And they are called the Syrians by the Greeks, as pointed out by Josephus. These are the relatives on the nation side of the maternal side of the nation of Israel, because Leah and Rachel, the wives of Jacob, were from the Syrian people, from what they call Padan Aram. Now, Padan, in the language, in that case being the language of Aramaic, that means plain, like Plain, like the Great Plains. Well, Padan Aram means the plain of Aram. All right, so let that be known and understood. Now, one of the things to also want to point out emphatically is that Solomon, being with the Queen of Sheba, wanted to let it be known and understood that what is in reference to today's terminology as Ethiopia is not the only place that the Bible means when it makes the term Ethiopia or speaks about Cush. All right, and the whole ancient world, including the biblical records, attest to that. Now, I have a book here entitled African Presence in Early Europe, edited by Ivan Sertima. May he rest in peace. Now, I wanted to sit there and read part of this, and this is on page 144 under the subtitle, The Moor, Light of Europe's Dark Age, right? And here's what we read in part of it. The Greeks themselves, approaching from the east in search of Egypt, called the black Africans they found there Ethiops, from the Greek words Athean, to burn, and ops, meaning face. Ancient Ethiopia, also known as Cush, was spelled with a K, or Cush, spelled with a C, formed an empire in much of the same location as the present-day country of the same name. Both the Roman Moray and the Greek Ethiop indicated more than one ethnic group. Herodotus, for example, held that Ethiopians occupied all of Africa, south and west of Libya. Europeans used the words Moor and Ethiopian almost interchangeably to indicate a black African. Several notable black Africans in Roman or medieval Europe had Moor, M-A-U-R, as a component to their name. Now, one of the things I wanted to point out too is an actual picture of this, as we see here. His gentleman's name is Mauritius the Moor. All right, this was better known in Europe as Saint Maurice. All right, this is dated to the 17th century, and this is the gentleman here, who was part of the people that you would call, or that the Romans and Greeks called, Moor or Ethiops, meaning burnt face. All right, so that's how they describe the people. And as the author in this book here pointed out, that both the Roman Moray and the Greek Ethiop indicated more than one ethnic group. So just like the Hyksos was more than one ethnic group, So was it the same with these other terms, because the people who were called Ethiop, the people who were called Moor, did not call themselves that. All right, that was a name given to them or applied to them by other people. That's something to also be known and understood. All right, now I want to go into the same book. This is entitled, once again, The African Presence in Early Europe. All right, now it says this: Arabia itself had first been populated by black people, as D. Houston states in her classic text, Wonderful Ethiopians of the Ancient Kushite Empire. The Kushites were the original Arabians, for Arabia was the oldest Ethiopian colony. According to Houston, ancient literature assigns their first settlement to the extreme southwestern point of the peninsula. From thence, they spread northward and eastward over Yemen, as well as Oman. In fact, the ancient Greeks made no distinction between the mother country and her colony, calling them both Ethiopia. So that's very important, because to let it be known and understood, because the area that you will see that you will call Ethiopia of today, as well as in what you will call southern Saudi Arabia, such as Yemen and Oman, that was called Ethiops as well. So the point of going over all of that is because sometimes people try to sit there and state that the Queen of Sheba was not the Queen of Ethiopia and after Africa's been colonized. But let it be known and understood, but if this was done by the Greeks' term Ethiops and Ethiopia, which was after Solomon, but way before the era of Leopold, when Africa was colonized itself, you know good and well, and brothers and sisters, that when the ancients spoke about Ethiopia, they were speaking about more than just that land that we see at present, called Ethiopia. That is why, as the teacher in the Hidden Colors DVD pointed out, that the Atlantic Ocean was at one time called the Ethiopian Sea. That is why you find certain scholars speaking, such as Rudolf Windsor in his book Babylon and Timbuktu, where he makes reference to the fact that ancient Ethiopia by name extended all the way to what we call Chad of today. All right, so let that be known and understood. Now I wanted to go also over a couple of more pictures, if we will. This here, brothers and sisters, is a picture from a book entitled The Ancient Near East in Text and Pictures. And in this right here, we see, as it says there, kneeling Syrians and Negroes decorated on a platform of Amenhotep III enthroned. And if you look very closely, these people are pictured in the statement said as Syrians and Negroes. Remember, for those who may know, that in the Merneptah Stela, the people called the Khor, when it says Syria or Aram has been subdued, Khor is the people that the Bible calls Khor or calls Aram. So Aram in the Bible is Khor in the ancient Egyptians. And both terms are referring to the people that the Greeks later on called the Syrians. But we can see very clearly, brothers and sisters, that they are not Caucasian. All right. And these are still speaking about the people of the Amu, that being the Syrian part, that is. All right. Now, another thing wanted to sit there and go over, brothers and sisters, is the fact that this, once again, and as you see, they try to block out the face and so forth and so on. All right. So enough with that particular aspect right there. Now, this right here, what we're going to get into is pictorial evidence of there being people that we will call ancient Israel. This here is found in the land of Israel or Israel. And in Hebrew, it says, Lashema, Ebed Yarabam. And it says, Tushama, the servant of Jeroboam. Jeroboam was one of the kings that ruled within the land of Israel. All right. So let that be known and understood. Now, this here, brothers and sisters, is part of what they refer to as the Lachish letters. All right. This is dated to the 6th century BCE. You can even look this up. Lachish, Lachish, Chish, the Lachish letters. And within what is referred to as the Lachish letters, brothers and sisters, it distinctly gets into the fact of the dating of it being, and this is important for debate purposes, because they try to sit there and always ask, well, can you show any kind of Hebrew writing that predates the era before Herod or the era before 300 BCE? Yeah, there's several of them. And certainly when you get into the era of Elephantine. All right, so these right here is just a couple of pictures and evidence for edification purposes. All right, now, a lot of times, and I want to conclude this part out here with just speaking. You have it to where you have it, brothers and sisters, where people try to sit there and state things that actually, no offense intended, don't make much sense. You cannot, as stated in part 1 of this Hebrew and Hyksos issue, that you cannot sit there and state that a people did not exist and then sit there and state that they plagiarized. All right. Now, we spoke before in issues about the chronology in the Torah is not from Ma'at, part 4. The chronology that they actually give of Egypt, as stated real quickly, is coming from Manetho, coming from the Turin papyrus that Ramses had made, from the era of the Abydos record and from the era of the Saqqara record. So they take all of that and then they come up with this list of kings. And then, unfortunately, many brothers and sisters into the Kemetic community, they try to sit there and then ask the world, in this case being the Israelites, who they particularly seem to love to have an attack on, to try to sit there and ask the Israelites, what date did this happen and what date did that happen? Not realizing, brothers and sisters, that you have kings that's not even dated inside of ancient Egypt, that were in Egypt. So if that's the case, then how you going to sit there and come with that same thing to try to use it as a ploy to go against the house of Israel? That was also asked in another question. During the debate presentation that happened in the past, I asked one of the contenders there, and this is not to, sound haughty or anything of that sort. If I'm following you right, brother, you're saying that the Israelites never existed. Then you're turned right around to state that they plagiarized. How can, and I know I asked this in part 1, how can a non-existent people be plagiarizing anything? At this point, you don't need a papyrus, the Metuneta, a Hebrew writing, a scarab. You don't need the ziggurat from Sumer or anything from the Aztecs and their pyramids either. At this point, it's just using logic at that point. You can't sit there and state that somebody did not exist and then sit there and state that that same non-existent person plagiarized anything. That's just not being bright or intelligent at that point. Now, one of the things I wanted to sit there and show and go over is this here. This here is what they refer to commonly as part of the Passover papyrus. Now, I wanted to sit there and read in a history book concerning this particular subject right here. The same reference book, The Ancient Near East, edited by James Pritchard. And it says the following. This is the translation partly from the Passover papyrus. And it says this. To my brethren Yedaniah and to his colleagues, the Jewish garrison, your brother Canania, the welfare of my brothers may God seek at all times. Now this year, the 5th year of King Darius, word was sent from the king to Asames, saying, authorize a festival of unleavened bread to the Jewish garrison. So do you count 14 days of the month of Nisan and observe the Passover. And from the 15th to the 21st day of Nisan, observe the feast of unleavened bread. Be ritually clean and take heed. Do no work on the 15th or the 21st day, nor drink beer, nor eat anything in which there is leaven, from the 14th at sundown until the 21st of Nisan. For 7 days it shall not be seen among you. Do not bring into your dwellings, but seal it up between these dates. This is by order of King Darius to my brother Yedoniah of the Jewish garrison, your brother Canania. Now that right there is called what they refer to, brothers and sisters, as the Passover papyrus. So let that be known and understood. This is dated from the time of Darius II, who actually passed away in 404 BCE. So yet there's another example of Hebrew evidence and writing before 300 BCE, because BCE dates count down. All right, shalom on this part, Everyone, have a good day and night. Peace.